Well, I think there's going to be sort of two focuses that you could break this down into: symbolism and substance. In terms of substance, there is this comprehensive partnership deal that is going to be finally inked here. It was supposed to be signed when he was due to come in June, but that trip was obviously postponed. This is a big umbrella agreement that sweeps up a whole load of different policy initiatives in terms of, better links with higher education, more scholarships, more working together, and partnerships in terms of military cooperation, anti-terrorism, and so on, working together on climate change, smuggling, a whole raft of different issues. So there's that kind of big set-piece policy initiative which will finally be ratified here. And then there's the symbolism as well. He's due to make a speech at a university tomorrow where we're expecting again to be touching on the themes of sort of re-engaging with the Muslim world, with expressing the kind of deep fundamental links that they have with Indonesia and hoping to forge deeper links still. He'll also visit the biggest mosque in Southeast Asia as well. It's a very quick visit though, less than 24 hours, a bit of a trip down memory lane for him. Of course, he lived here when he was a boy growing up, but there's no time in the schedule by the looks of it for him to go and visit his old neighbourhood. He'll be out tomorrow afternoon and on his way to the G20.
There were some protests, we were showing video of some protests yesterday, Dan, by Muslim groups against the US president, but how popular is he in Indonesia?
Well, I think the fact that he lived here for 4 years, will naturally endear him to many Indonesians, but also the fact that this trip has been postponed twice, it means that perhaps the reception is a little bit more lukewarm than it would have been otherwise. They've gone through all the preparations and excitement back in March. It was cancelled, and the same again in June. It was cancelled again because of the BP oil spill. And there were some demonstrations. It was pretty small stuff, though, it must be said, Andrew. A few dozen protesters from a hardline Islamist group. But I think generally he's still a pretty popular president here, a lot more popular than President Bush was at the time because of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. But as you can see, the weather is not exactly going to give him a great welcome. It's just beginning to pour with rain as he's about to touch down here in Jakarta.
I was wondering what that noise was. Dan, let's talk about the timing of this trip, because it's not just Indonesia. A number of countries are expressing concerns about the new assertiveness of China. We've seen territorial disputes, certainly a bitter row between China and Japan, and not to mention just the general superpower economic status of China across Asia these days. Are those concerns going to play into Mr. Obama's advantage on this trip?
Maybe, but I think Indonesia is treading this difficult line between wanting more links with the US and wanting improved trade, but not shutting the door on China either. The trade with the US is only about 10% of their exports, and about the same goes to China each year. And I don't think the Indonesians would want to shut the door on China at all. And they don't really need to cozy up massively to the US. This place has transformed itself in 15 years, 12 years since the financial crisis and then the end of the Suharto regime. I mean, all these buildings you've seen behind me just weren't here 10 years ago. This city has reborn in a decade, and that's been largely from domestic demand and consumption. And now, add in the China factor as well. The economy is motoring here. The stock market just hit an all-time high. It's looking like it might get 6% growth GDP this year. They don't need the United States, but they certainly want to add in as much links as they can to help continue this growth. But a lot of it is coming from domestic demand from other regional countries roundabout, and of course from China.